Hello everyone. Today I'm going to tell you the story of Ha. A single mother here is the English translation, keeping the tone gentle, emotional, and faithful to the original. The story revolves around Ha, a woman carrying twins during a stage of pregnancy filled with exhaustion and pressure. The days no longer pass as gently as they once did, as her body grows weaker with time, her strength slowly draining away with each heavy, labored breath. Her growing belly makes every movement more difficult. Each step, each attempt to stand up or sit down requires greater effort than before. Even the simplest daily activities gradually turn into challenges, forcing Ha to pause again and again, take deep breaths, and listen closely to her own body. During this time, Ha is compelled to confront a sense of helplessness as she realizes she can no longer control her health the way she once did. She learns to accept her own fragility, to accept that there are moments when she must rely on others, slow her pace, and set aside familiar routines in order to protect herself and the two lives growing within her. This acceptance does not come easily. It forms little by little, through long days of exhaustion, through moments when Ha comes to understand that weakness, in this moment, is not a failure, but an unavoidable part of the journey she is living through. Here is the English translation, keeping the emotional restraint and quiet depth of the original. Hung, Ha's husband, is always by her side, caring for her and watching every small change with a worry that never truly fades. He notices even the subtlest signs, from the color of her face and the rhythm of her breathing to the moments when she slows down from exhaustion, as if the slightest lapse in attention might cause him to miss something important. In Hung's eyes, there is a constant, unspoken tension, a fear without a name that makes him observe everything more carefully than usual. Facing fatherhood for the first time, Hung carries a deep but quiet sense of unease. He rarely speaks about his emotions and never lets Ha bear the weight of those thoughts. Instead, everything is kept within a familiar silence, expressed through the way he stays close, trying to appear calmer and steadier than he truly feels. That worry reveals itself through countless small but consistent acts of preparation. Hung takes the initiative to arrange everything around them so that Ha can rest more and shoulder fewer burdens on her own. He pays close attention to her daily routine, adjusting each detail to ensure things move more slowly and safely. There are nights when, after Ha has fallen asleep, Hung remains awake, sitting quietly beside her, listening to each steady breath and every faint movement, as if reassuring himself that everything is still all right. Hung's care needs no explanations or spoken promises. It shows itself through his enduring presence, through patience stretched across each passing day, like a habit woven deeply into the rhythm of life. Within these wordless actions, his love and sense of responsibility merge quietly, existing in the smallest, most ordinary moments, yet never once absent. Here is the English translation, preserving the emotional depth and quiet tension of the original. At the moment when Ha entered the most delicate stage of her pregnancy, when both her body and her spirit had become more fragile than ever, Hung was forced to leave on a distant business trip for an urgent task that could not be postponed. The timing came too suddenly, making every preparation feel rushed and heavy. Hung understood Ha's condition all too well, knowing that each passing day was a trial for her, yet he had no choice but to leave. That decision placed Hung under immense pressure, torn between reason and responsibility, pulling him in one direction, while his worry for Ha held him firmly in the other. He weighed the choice over and over in his mind, searching for a path that would cause the least pain for them both, only to realize that no option was truly gentle. Despite his constant hesitation and the growing unease within him, Hùng could not escape the moment of accepting separation, carrying with him the feeling of having never been fully prepared for it. In the days leading up to his departure, fear and guilt clung to him relentlessly. Hùng watched Ha more closely than ever, noticing every subtle change, every fleeting sign of exhaustion on her face. He understood that during this stage, even the smallest disturbance could become a cause for concern, and the thought of not being by her side left him feeling utterly helpless. That anxiety was never spoken aloud, yet it showed clearly in his lowered gaze, in the long stretches of silence, in the way he reminded Ha of things more often than necessary, as if this were the only way he could compensate for his impending absence. When Hùng finally left, the unease remained intact within him, untouched by distance. He carried with him a worry that had not yet settled, along with a deep sense of guilt for being unable to stay when Ha needed him most, leaving behind an emptiness he dared not dwell on for too long. And Ha, left alone with a pregnancy that grew heavier by the day, continued to face the familiar exhaustion and pressure in his absence. The distance that formed was not merely geographical. It became a quiet sense of loneliness, as the weight of this stage forced Ha to carry everything on her own, slowly and silently, with unspoken patience. Here is the English translation, maintaining the quiet tenderness and emotional restraint of the original. During Hung's absence, Tusan became Ha's most important source of support, the one who stayed by her side quietly yet steadily, without display and without any need for recognition. Tusan's presence brought with it a rare sense of stability amid those uncertain and fragile days. Without clear promises or prior arrangements, she naturally stepped into this role through a form of care that was silent and consistent, as if it were simply the most natural thing to do. Tusan stayed with Ha through the routines of everyday life, accompanying her through each small moment of days that grew heavier with time. She paid attention to every fleeting trace of exhaustion, every subtle change in Ha's expression and daily rhythm. Sometimes it was nothing more than a slowed glance, a presence close enough for Ha not to feel empty. This care unfolded gently and instinctively, becoming a familiar part of Tusan's own rhythm of life, something that did not need to be spoken of or named. Tusan tended to Ha through simple, steady actions. She helped Ha find more time to rest, reminded her of necessary things in a soft way that never made Ha feel like a burden. When Ha felt tired or anxious, Tusan was always ready to listen, without interrupting, without offering hurried advice. She did not ask too many questions or create pressure to explain, but patiently remained beside her, allowing silence itself to become a safe space for Ha to lean on. Tusan's care was neither loud nor demonstrative. It existed in the smallest gestures, in the lightest actions, and in the carefully preserved moments of silence. It was a kind of care that needed no explanation and asked for nothing in return, simply existing as a steady presence amid the changes Ha was enduring. In those anxious and lonely months of pregnancy, Tusan's presence became a quiet yet unwavering source of strength for Ha. She did not try to dispel Ha's fears or deny her fragility, but chose instead to stay with her, to walk beside her through each day at a gentler pace. With Tusan there, Ha gradually felt a soft sense of reassurance, unobtrusive, yet deep enough to help her continue through this vulnerable period without having to face it alone. Here is the English translation, preserving the urgency, tension, and emotional tone of the original. The crisis struck late one night when Ha suddenly showed signs of premature labor, far beyond anything that had been anticipated. The pain came abruptly and in relentless waves, pushing her already exhausted body quickly into a state of panic and depletion. In the stillness of the night, the abnormality became starkly evident, each contraction following the next, leaving Ha unprepared both physically and mentally. In that moment, being unable to reach Hung only intensified the tension and suffocating fear. Unanswered calls and brief waits that stretched endlessly with worry caused her anxiety to rise little by little. Ha faced the onset of labor in a state of both pain and confusion, when the person she needed most was unable to be there at this critical time. Faced with the emergency, Tusan managed to remain calm. Without hesitation or panic, she immediately took Ha to the hospital, focusing all her attention on getting her there in time for urgent care. Every action was rushed yet decisive, like a natural reflex born of concern and responsibility. Throughout the journey to the hospital, Tusan stayed close to Ha, offering reassurance while doing her best to keep her from succumbing to fear, helping her endure a moment of danger that arrived far too suddenly in the quiet of the night. Here is the English translation, preserving the gravity and emotional restraint of the original. Because it was a high-risk twin pregnancy, Ha's condition was quickly assessed by the doctors as requiring urgent medical intervention. The atmosphere in the hospital grew tense, professional discussions unfolded rapidly, and a decision had to be made within a very short time. The doctors asked for a family member to sign the consent form for the procedure, as every minute of delay could directly affect the safety of both Ha and the two babies. In that moment, Hung's absence made everything feel even heavier. Time seemed to stretch painfully between waiting and pressure, with no possibility of postponing anything further. Faced with this situation, Tusan was forced to confront a choice that no one would wish to bear, yet one that could not be avoided. Unable to wait any longer, Tusan signed the consent form on behalf of the family, making the decision with a calm that carried immense weight. That signature was not merely a legal formality, it was an acceptance of the greatest responsibility at the most fragile moment. She fully understood the meaning of that choice, knowing that all risks and consequences were bound to her signature, yet she did not hesitate, because before her, there was only one thing that mattered: protection. Tusan stepped forward to act in place of the family, in place of the one who could not be there, to protect Ha and the two children at a moment balanced between life and death. The decision was made in silence, without declarations or justification, only the resolve of someone willing to carry the heaviest burden when no one else could. Here is the English translation, preserving the emotional weight, pacing, and quiet release of the original. The delivery was successful after long hours of tension and waiting, as a heavy atmosphere hung over what felt like an endless stretch of time. Each minute passed slowly, carrying with it layers of suppressed anxiety that left everyone holding their breath, waiting for a clear sign from the delivery room. The unease that had accumulated earlier, the fragile premonitions intertwined with fear, was finally replaced by the announcement everyone had been silently hoping for. Ha gave birth to two healthy baby girls, safely passing through the most vulnerable moment, bringing to an end a sequence of minutes in which no one dared to breathe too deeply, fearing that even the smallest change might alter everything. When the good news arrived, Tusan felt as though a weight she had been carrying for hours without fully realizing it was suddenly lifted from her chest. The sense of relief came too quickly, too unexpectedly, causing emotion to surge before she could restrain it. After all the prolonged tension, the quiet worries, and the heavy pressure she had borne alone, the release of feeling overflowed, spreading through her body in a brief moment, yet deep enough to leave her trembling. That joy was neither loud nor demonstrative. It settled instead into a soft sense of gratitude, mingling with the lingering tremor left behind by the ordeal. Tusan stood still for a moment, allowing the emotion to wash over her freely, without the need to hide it or give it a name. In that moment, she realized that Ha was safe, the two children had been born healthy, and the heaviest hours had finally been left behind, closing a path filled with pressure with a quiet, complete sense of relief. Here is the English translation, keeping the emotional depth, restraint, and gratitude of the original. When Hung returned to the hospital after long, drawn-out hours filled with worry that had yet to subside, he nearly froze at the scene before him. The sight of Ha lying on the hospital bed, her face still pale after childbirth, with their two tiny children resting peacefully beside her, caused all the emotions he had been holding back to suddenly break free. In that moment, Hung could no longer maintain his familiar composure. Tears came naturally, carrying both overwhelming relief and deep remorse for not having been there at the most critical time. He stood still for a long while, looking at his wife and their two children as if to reassure himself that it was all real, that the worst fears had ultimately not come to pass. Quiet regret rose within him as he thought of the time Ha had faced danger alone, and of his own helplessness in being unable to arrive when it mattered most. Those tears carried profound gratitude as well, for everything that had been preserved, for his wife's safety, and for the two fragile lives who had entered the world healthy and whole. In that silent wave of emotion, Hung and Ha gradually arrived at a decision born from the depths of their hearts. They understood clearly that in the most tense and vulnerable hours, Tusan had been the one to shoulder the heaviest responsibility in their place, the one who stayed, who made the decision, and who protected Ha and the two children through quiet sacrifice. For that reason, they decided to let Tusan choose the names of the twins, as a heartfelt gesture of recognition and gratitude for the wordless love she had given their family. That decision required no lengthy explanation and carried no sense of formality. It settled instead as a lasting expression of thanks, entrusted to the meaning of two names. It was a tribute to Tusan, to everything she had done in silence, to her timely presence and her selfless sacrifice, acts that needed no name, yet had become an inseparable part of the most sacred moment in this family's life. Here is a longer, more expansive rewrite of that closing passage, keeping the same meaning and tone while deepening the reflection, without adding new events or plot. The story comes to a close with the image of a small family, one that is formed and held together not solely by blood, but by the quiet, timely presence of those who chose to stay when everything felt most fragile. It is a family shaped in moments of uncertainty, sustained by people who did not turn away when fear and vulnerability appeared, but instead remained, silently and steadfastly. What binds them is not grand declarations or dramatic gestures, but a sense of responsibility that never needed to be spoken aloud, choices made in silence, and a love that flows gently through the smallest, most ordinary actions of daily life. This family is not defined by noise or display, but by patience that stretches across difficult days, by sacrifices that ask for no recognition, and by the courage to step forward and shoulder the heaviest weight when others are unable to do so. These quiet acts, so easily overlooked, so seemingly fragile, become the strongest threads holding people together. They are deep enough to give true meaning to the word family and enduring enough to accompany them as they move forward, hand in hand, along paths that have yet to be named, but will be faced together.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình. mọi người rất nhiều vì đã luôn theo dõi và ủng hộ cho video của mình nhé. Bây giờ thì mình đang làm video. Tạm biệt mọi người.